Welcome back to another edition of the Breakdown, you all. Today, I'm starting a series where I'm going to go through the Alabama roster, offense, defense, a little bit of special teams, and I'm going to kind of, let you know how the roster is changing, how the personnel of Alabama is changing now that a season has ended and we're looking ahead to the 2018 season and what are the implications for some of those changes. And today, specifically, we're going to talk about the Alabama offense, which is going to get a ton of attention and detail, articles, and everything for this next few months. So be prepared to have your ears talked off forever, specifically about Jalen and Tua. I'm not going to give you all that today. I'm just going to talk about the offense as a whole here, and we'll just go from there. So let's talk about the roster shakeup for the offense for coming up the 2018 season. Now, obviously, at quarterback, we have Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa. It's going to be, like I said, the big topic of discussion for everyone else. We all know all the details. Jalen obviously is a fantastic runner, and Tua obviously has the natural pocket passing skills, and people are going to compare that all over. But let's not forget about Mac Jones, who is the backup to these two, who had a DUI late in the season, so kind of showed a little case of bad judgment there. I don't know how long he's going to be in Nick Saban's doghouse because of that, but that is something to look out for. So Alabama only has 3 scholarship quarterbacks. So Alabama is fortunate not to have to go through any injuries on the season, and that these guys are pretty sturdy. And so we'll see what happens, how it works out this summer. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about this too much right now. I'll let you guys do that. Now, moving on to the running backs for Alabama. Alabama is only losing Bo Scarborough from the Alabama running backs position. And maybe I have to double check, but maybe Ronnie Clark as well. I know he's been there for a while, but definitely out of the guys who played a lot, Bo Scarborough's the only one who's leaving, and for some Alabama fans, maybe me as well, that may not be a bad thing, as I kind of decried his vision so much throughout last year or so, and he seems to just not get better in that department for this year. So I think with him gone, that will allow some of these younger backs to get on the field more and display their talents. Obviously, Damian Harris returning, the leading rusher from the past 2 years, although you wouldn't know it based on all the media coverage Bo Scarborough got the last 2 years. Some deservingly, but also undeservingly at sometimes, considering how productive Damian Harris has been since his sophomore year on campus. It seems that he'll finally come into the season getting all the credit he deserves as a starting running back. I'm expecting Damian Harris to also continue to produce and probably have his best yardage total yet. Depending on how the offensive line shakes out and depending on how much Alabama throws the ball now that Mike Locksley, new offensive coordinator, if you haven't heard, has been hired on. And we'll see what happens. But Damian Harris returns as the starting back. Then we have Najee Harris and Josh Jacobs. This is going to be interesting. I wonder how they're going to shake them out. Maybe they'll make Najee Harris the second string back because he's bigger, and have Josh Jacobs be the third down back, kind of scat back, the speed guy, although he definitely can run in between the tackles as well. I love Josh Jacobs getting the ball. I have no problems with him taking the rock. Interesting thing about these backs. Let me also mention Brian Robinson before I talk about their individual skills and whatnot. Brian Robinson also was a true freshman last year, and he displayed his talent and the different times that he got into the game. So I'm excited to see him get some more opportunities this year as well. He's a very balanced back. I like what he brings, the speed, power, and the vision. He kind of has a good bit of all of those in him. And so later on down the line, I can't wait to see him get more carries. Now, out of the 3 backs who will get the most attention, which is Damian Harris, Najee Harris, and Josh Jacobs, Damian Harris obviously has the best vision out of these 3. And he uses that and he put it on display all the time with his great cutbacks, getting to the right hole every time, and really just taking advantage of defenses over pursuit and whatnot. He's not the fastest back. He's not the most powerful back. He's not the biggest one. But his vision really, really puts him in the right place a lot of times. And the crazy thing is, like I say, he's not the fastest, but he's not but he's not slow at all. His speed is definitely above average. He's able to maintain long runs, and he has enough power. It'd just be interesting to see him get that lead back role this year. Hopefully, he gets more carries in the game, although the fewer carries does keep him fresh. So that's something that was good about the fewer carries that he did get. Now, Najee Harris is an interesting guy. A lot of people are expecting a lot of big things out of him. And, he's a big guy, 6'2", about 220. He's a big back. But he's not big, if that makes sense. He doesn't have the Bo Scarborough body. He doesn't quite have a Derrick Henry body. He kind of reminds me it's almost like wide receiver like. But he has like a build to him that's like muscular and strong, like a running back. But he doesn't really have like that one aspect of his body that makes him look like a running back. If that makes sense to you, maybe it doesn't make sense to you. You can let me know. But he's just an interesting type guy. He has the length and the athleticism, the range to just kind of do some things that a normal back can't do. And I think we saw that in the national championship game. One thing that I do find really, really kind of odd about his running style is that his legs seem to, I don't know how to describe it. They seem to stiffen up on him sometimes, or it seems that when he's running, his legs seem unnatural or uncomfortable in the stride that they're in. It almost seems like he kind of has like some type of jank in his motion where it's like, I gotta pull these legs into where I'm going, and it makes him look a bit slower, but he's obviously not slow. It's just an interesting thing with him that I've noticed. What do you guys think about that? Also, he's also balanced because he has that speed, and he has some power. He's not like really really powerful. He's not going to be running guys over like Jerome Bettis, but he kind of combines his height, the speed he does have, and that power to give some balance. Alabama has some really good balance backs, and then of course you've got Josh Jacobs, who, in my opinion, has been one of the better backs and underappreciated ones for the last 2 years as well, as he's been on Alabama's team. He has some good speed. He also has some solid vision, and he has some really good footwork. I think that's what sets him apart. That's kind of like one of his distinguishing marks as a back for Alabama, is his footwork and ability to get to the right place and just take off into the hole. And his pass catching ability. There's a play against Tennessee, I think, where he called a post route from Jalen, like he was a wide receiver from the slot. And Josh Jacobs' pass catching ability is probably the best on the Alabama running back roster. And Brian Robinson, we didn't see a lot from him, but I did just notice that overall he is a really balanced back. Kind of reminds you more of a traditional running back. He's not really short, but he is shorter than Najee Harris, and kind of has a compact build, but looks very fit and trimmed up, and also just has a lot of balance. So these guys are going to get a lot of opportunities. The Alabama running back position is probably the most field position on the Alabama offense this year. Like in terms of depth, in terms of like consistent performers from top to bottom, I think the Alabama running back depth chart is the best out of the offense, at least so far. And that's really interesting because you're comparing to the rest of the team. It's like they're all still really good, but that tells you something about the quality of athletes that are recruited for Alabama. Now, for the wide receiver position, 3 starters are gone. Calvin Ridley is gone, outside receiver gone. Robert Foster, another outside receiver, gone. Cam Sims, slot receiver, gone. They all started at those spots for Alabama receivers. So the Alabama receiving corps will be brand new, at least in terms of starters, because the guys that are going to replace them are guys that you're probably familiar with. Outside receiver will most likely be Jerry Jeudy. Other outside receiver will most likely be Devonta Smith. And the slot guy will probably be Henry Ruggs III. These guys who you've all seen made plays throughout the seasons. Everyone knows Devonta Smith now caught the game-winning touchdown from Tua in the national championship. Henry Ruggs caught a touchdown from Tua in the national championship. And Jerry Jeudy has been all over the place the whole year, the 2017 season. Actually had the second most receiving yards on the team, with only 14 catches. Shows you like how he's getting open in the field. He's a good receiver. Also returning, Alabama has at least 4 other receivers returning who didn't play much. 2 guys who didn't play much this season but did play, and 2 guys who redshirted. The 2 guys who played a little bit were Xavier Marks, who was the 3rd string slot receiver. He's a pretty fast guy. Did a little bit of return as well. And Derek Keefe, one of the reserve outside receivers. Been on the team for a while, really has gained the respect of the coaching staff and the ability to do what he's supposed to do as a receiver, knowing the position. Now he may not be the most talented guy, but he's tall and he can just kind of get in and out of his routes. It'll be interesting if he gets any playing time or much at all with these young guys. But those two are returners who played a little bit last year. Now the two who redshirted, who didn't play at all, Tyrell Shavers, who many thought he would play, but I guess he just really couldn't get on the field. The other guys kind of took ahead of him, and he never was able to catch up. And then Shadarius Townsend, who was an athlete who they trying to experiment at offense and defense. But he redshirted along with Shaver. So those two guys will come back probably hoping to make an impact and get on the field this year. Now we're going to move on to the tight end. This is also a position that Alabama doesn't have to worry about because all three tight ends who played a lot last year, they return. Hill Hingis, Irv Smith, and Miller Forrestall, who should be a big impact in the passing game. As he's a tall guy, like 6'7". He's big, 248, something like that. He's a big guy, and expect him to have an impact in the passing game. And of course, 84 and 82 will be online and also playing H-back, and they all just kind of mix and match and do their thing. So tight end should be good for Alabama. Now, the offensive line will probably be an underrated but very interesting aspect of the Alabama offense for the roster. So last year, it was obviously Jonah Williams at left tackle, Ross Pierce-Baker at left guard, Bradley Bozeman at center, Lester Cotton at right guard, and Matt Womack at right tackle. Now, we're only losing one of those guys, so Alabama will return 4 starters on offensive line. The only starter missing will be Bradley Bozeman at center. Center is a very important part of the Alabama offensive line and part of everybody's offensive line. And we're also losing the top backup, the guy who started in place of Cotton in the national championship game, J.C. Hassenauer. He's gone. So only Bradley Bozeman and J.C. Hassenauer are gone. So a lot of people will expect, well, we just got to replace the center and everybody else will remain the same. Maybe not. And here's why. So Alex Leatherwood came in and played for Jonah Williams when he got hurt in the national championship game. And that was at left tackle as a true freshman, and he played pretty well. Hold on to that. Also, Lester Cotton, the starting right guard, got a knee injury against Clemson. Now you got 2 guys who hurt their knees, Jonah Williams and Lester Cotton. Obviously, I'm expecting them to come back healthy and play. But while they're out, these other guys are going to get reps, and they're going to get opportunities to show their stuff, and they're getting opportunities to take the job if they can. So that's going to actually could possibly shift some things around, not to mention that Matt Womack struggled in pass protection last year, and Jedrick Wills was pushing him. He was a true freshman all season, meaning that what could happen is that Jedrick Wills could actually push Matt Womack out of the starting position and be starting at right tackle. Alex Leatherwood could be pushing Jonah Williams out of his starting spot at left tackle and be the starter there. And there's also been talk about Jonah Williams taking the place of Bradley Bozeman at center and becoming a starter at center. So that would make the offensive line look really different because it would be Alex Leatherwood at left tackle, Ross Pierce-Baker at left guard, Jonah Williams at center, Lester Cotton at right guard. That's if he isn't pushed out by some of the younger guys behind him. And maybe even they push Matt Womack inside. And Jedrick Wills, the true sophomore, at right tackle. And then you still have to consider the fact that Brandon Kennedy was the top backup for center last year. So Brandon Kennedy will be battling out with Jonah Williams if that's the case. Also, there's another possibility that Jonah Williams maintains his left tackle spot, and Alex Leatherwood actually moves over and beats out Jedrick Wills and Matt Womack for the right tackle spot, which could be a bit unlikely because Alex Leatherwood, he did practice a bit at right tackle, but they're 2 different positions. He may not be as good at right tackle, so that's an opportunity. But here's even another one. Alex Leatherwood beats out Jonah Williams at left tackle, or he's the better fit because he's more athletic. That's why I say about beat out. It doesn't always mean that they're necessarily just an overall better player, but that they may be a better fit at that position. So Alex Leatherwood could be the left tackle, and Jonah Williams could be the right tackle. Jedrick Wills shifts inside to right guard if he can play some guard. But then that would mean Lester Cotton loses the job. So is a really Alabama's in a good position numbers and depth-wise when it comes to the offensive line. It's just figuring out who are the best guys to play together on the line. I think Nick Saban and the staff are going to do a good job of trying to figure that out. Not to mention, of course, there's backups who've been practicing and who have been developing on this team for a while, like Deontay Brown, Dallas Warmack, Scott Lashley. There's just guys who've been waiting who are talented. So the offensive line is going to be one of those battles that people aren't talking about, but it's going to be very fun to see who are the final lineup when the season starts. And now I'm just going to do like a quick special teams update. Alabama's starting kicker and punter are gone. Fans are probably some fans are probably happy that the kicker's gone. Although I like the Papa Nasty. He wasn't a bad kicker. And the punter, J.K. Scott, Alabama fans are going to be sad about that one. It's probably the best punter in the nation for a while now, and he probably make a lot of money in the NFL. So Alabama fans are probably sad to see him go because he's been punting since his freshman season. The guys who are going to take over are probably redshirt freshman kicker Bulovas, who wasn't able to beat out Papanastas this past year. So that may actually give some people some room for fear, but not necessarily. And then a true freshman most likely will be the punter as well, Skylar DeLong, who just came in this recruiting class. And I forgot to mention at the beginning, this is just based on guys who have left and guys who are returning. This is not necessarily about, I haven't brought in the fact that Alabama's recruiting guys to address some needs. So I'm going to talk about that. Keep that in mind as maybe if you go back through the video and hear something else here, or even when I do my defensive video, which is the next one that you'll hear, that Alabama's losing a lot of guys. But you also have to consider the fact that there are guys who haven't played yet, who's redshirted, and then you have to consider the recruiting classes, which I'm not getting into yet. The recruiting will come after these offense and defense videos. So that's it for the offense. That's all I have to tell you about it now. Let me know some of your thoughts on some of these position battles or some of these position leaving. Which positions do you feel most comfortable about? Which positions do you have a little bit more concern or worry about? Who do you think will step up at certain positions? Like who do you think would be the best receiver for this upcoming year? Which of the receivers who didn't play that much last year, who will now maybe have an opportunity, who you think would step up? Out of the running backs, who is your favorite? Out of the offensive line, who do you think is the starting offensive line combination? I know this is early. This is really early. No one's going to know for the next year. And finally, what do you think about the special team situation for this upcoming year? So that's it for the offensive shakeup video. We'll come back with the defensive one. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.